first known rules of golf were drawn up in 1744 by the gentlemen golfers of Edinburgh in Leith, Scotland. Since then the game has changed dramatically. Golf courses, equipment, and not least the rules. So where do I go when I want to learn about the rules of the game today? Well, I go to the Golf Rules Questions podcast with Blakey and Roscoe, of course. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Golf Rules Questions podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 75 of the Golf Rules Questions podcast with Blakey, your host and co-host I have alongside me, or not alongside me, but in front of me, laughing at me now, Stuart McPhee. Welcome, Stuart.
Thanks, Blakey. Always good to be here.
Now, we talked about episode 74, we talked about all your stuff that's been going on, like all your stuff as in all your refereeing duties that you've been undertaken in the past week. And then you also had the Australian Open where you're a volunteer, so you didn't have refereeing duties, but you're involved and saw a lot of golf up close and personal as a walker scorer. So how you been? How's this week been? Have you gotten into any refereeing situations or even just walking scorer?
So I was at the Vic Amateur for Monday, Tuesday this week at Royal Melbourne. And so there both days. I was there all day Tuesday for the semi-finals of the men and the women, and then I was assigned referee to the men's final on Tuesday afternoon in appalling conditions weather-wise. Sideways rain, very, very windy. Had a few rulings as a result of rain and wind, and they both played exceptionally good golf. They were both, I think, pretty almost even with the card, I reckon, in those conditions at Royal Melbourne was phenomenal. Anyway, we had a winner on the 17th hole. So, yeah, had a few things to do Monday, Tuesday at the Vic Amateur.
Oh, fantastic. And do you have any, as a rover or as a assigned referee, did you have anything tricky that came up?
Nothing tricky. The most things I had to do was when I was the assigned referee to that men's final on the very first, two balls on two different holes moved on the putting green because of the strong wind. One of them, he just hit out of the bunker, come to rest. He's going up to mark, and sure enough, the wind starts rolling again, and it starts rolling about a metre towards the hole. And he's looked at me going, what did he say? He said, "Oh, can I play on?" Almost another, phrase from another sport. Can I play on? I said, had you lifted and replaced? No, I knew he hadn't. I said, did you move it? He said, no. I said, no, you played as it lies. Not play on, but you played as it lies. On another case, he had lifted and replaced, and then the wind moved it because of the strong wind. So just a simple put it back. Another temporary water. There was a temporary water in the bunker, and he said, can I take relief from that? I said, yes. His opponent goes, oh, but you'll have to drop it. And he says, is that right? I said, no, you'll be dropping it in the bunker. He goes, oh, okay. Can I play it as it lies? I said, go for it, no problem. Which he did, made a par, kept the match going on the 16th hole, and not much. And maybe twice when it was, they're both looking at me going, who's first, who's away. So I had to pace out a few times or do the old, standing between the balls and working out where the flag stick was. A few times on one occasion, I wasn't 100% sure, and I just said, look, you're welcome to get a laser out to confirm it. He goes, oh, no, I'm good, I'll play. But no, a few things, all weather related, really, all because of the conditions.
I've got. I didn't interrupt you, but I've got some comments there. Number one, so you didn't blow the whistle and say that was a knock on and a turnover. Number two, and our friend Stuart Jones sent through an email about opponents giving advice and all that kind of thing during the week. So thank you very much, SJ. But the opponent in there, but you have to drop it. Is that giving advice? That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Well, technically, I would say that's advising them of the rules, and I wouldn't have an issue with it. But it's suddenly not a you. If you were going to take relief, you drop it. It's you have to. An interesting.
That is a good point. When he said it, I thought it was almost like the opponent was like doing that for my benefit, making sure I got the rule correct.
I'm happy with
almost.
that.
Yeah, almost. He was making sure that if he was going to get relief, he wasn't placing it, he was going to drop it. You'll have to drop it. He said, "Oh, is that right?" I said, "No, I haven't got to that point yet." Yes, you must take complete relief, nearest point, club length. You must drop it though. And the bunker goes, "Okay, I'll play it as it lies." But yeah, it's interesting though.
And then you penalise the opponent for doing your job.
Chiming in.
That's right. So, no, very good, Stuart. And then you've got some work next week as well, or in the next couple of days.
Next week, 4 days, Sandbelt Invitational at some very, very nice courses.
Yeah, talk about good golf courses. I have refereed at Royal once or twice, and to be honest, there isn't really too much in terms of rules that you can get into. They're artificial pars, the gravelled ones. The club play them as it lies. The metal ones you can get free relief from, but the concrete, fully concrete ones you can get free relief. But the gravel ones, they don't give relief for the club.
I can't think of any penalty areas.
Well, that's an interesting question. There isn't any.
On 36 holes.
Because the dams, I think they made the dam out of bounds, between West 3 and West 6. I think they made the dam out of bounds. But it was funny. We had some penalty areas in the President's Cup where they found like these little ditches between 1 and 2, right in the bush, like unbelievable why you'd find this. But they found these little ditches and like, okay, we'll make them penalty areas. But I would have just left them as is. But it's pretty good committee coming down from the PGA Tour that did all that. But yeah, there's not much going on that course from a rules perspective, and it's pretty clean. Well, we'd say clean, so pretty good.
I guess on the West course, there's a lot of, if you're offline, you're going to be in trouble. So maybe there's a few provisionals off the tee and whether you search for a ball or not. But yeah, you're right. It's pretty clean. I can't think of too many penalty areas on any of the holes, all 36 of them.
Yeah, so there you go. It's 24 rules, but really only 23 because you cut out that 17.
17.
And then we're about to talk about the new rule changes, which will go to 25. But they'll at Royal, you'd still cut out number 17, so you'd be back to 24. Now, let's get into the answer for GRQOTW 74.
Would you like me to read the question out?
Yeah, shoot with the question, please.
GRQOTW for episode 74. Helen and Charlotte are partners in foursomes match play, and they are playing against Andy, the average golfer, and Big P. On the first hole at Wombat Hills, Helen has teed off, and then Charlotte goes down and arrives at the ball in the fairway to make the second stroke for the side. Charlotte marks the spot of Helen's ball, lifts it from the course, replacing her own ball on the spot. One of their opponents, Big P, doesn't believe that is allowed and claims the hole. What is the ruling?
Yeah, so the ruling there is, and we just need to make sure, but it's written in there that a stroke was never made by Charlotte. So she's done the wrong thing by swapping her ball when she's not permitted to. If the question had said something along the lines of the ball was damaged or could have been damaged and Charlotte was inspecting it, different situation. There was nothing said about that. It was just a case of Charlotte wanted to change her ball and she thought she could. She changes the ball, doesn't make a stroke. So effectively she's moved the ball in play under 9.4 and that side gets a penalty of one shot and then they just replace the ball, replace the original ball. If Charlotte makes a stroke at the swapped ball, the incorrectly substituted ball, then it's a loss of hole. It's an easy situation with a match play. It's just a loss of hole as opposed to stroke play where it would be a two-shot penalty.
I think we may get to this, that playing an incorrectly substituted ball will no longer be the general penalty. I think we'll get to that. That's not yet.
That's right. So in 2023, it would actually be, if she made a stroke, just the one-shot penalty. And that is a great lead-in to the outcome changes. So the outcome changes, we've got a document here from the R&A and the USGA, and we're going to run through this document that details all the changes for next year. Now, we're going to try and run through them fairly quickly, just basically reading that. Stuart and I will take turns at reading it out, and it is pretty self-explanatory. The document is on the website of the R&A. That's where I got it. I'm sure it's on the USGA website as well. So you can go and have a look at it. I would strongly recommend you do, but we're just going to read it out for everyone, and hopefully our monotone voices won't put you to sleep. No, hopefully you'll get a bit out of it. So, outcome changes, 2019 rules to 2023 rules comparison. Let's start with 1.3b2. Determining the area of the course where the ball lies, including whether the ball lies on the course. Determining whether the ball touches or is in or on an abnormal course condition. So that's the topic. The 2019 outcome, it was unclear when reasonable judgment should be applied to these determinations. The 2023 outcome, reasonable judgment applies when determining the area of the course where the ball lies, if it lies in or out of bounds, or if it touches or is in or on an abnormal course condition. Pretty self-explanatory, that one. Go for it, Stuart.
1.3C4, the topic is a player breaches different rules or the same rule multiple times. 2019 said, while there are exceptions, a player gets multiple penalties if the breaches are unrelated. If the breaches are related, the player gets multiple penalties only when there has been an intervening event. In 2023, committees no longer have to determine whether acts are related or unrelated. Intervening events are used to determine whether a player gets multiple penalties. There are only two intervening events: completion of a stroke and awareness of a breach. In addition, I say recommend reading the rule and associated clarifications in detail to understand the revised rule. So that's definitely a change, isn't it?
I absolutely love that one. I don't want to spend too much time on the comments there, but absolutely love that one. It's going to make it so much easier. They've removed one of the intervening events now. Yep. Used to be called intervening acts.
Yep.
They've removed one of them, and then basically if you get a penalty or multiple penalties in between those intervening acts, you're only going to get the one GP. Right, C 3.2C 1/2. So that's a when I say C at the start, it's a clarification. 3.2C 1/2. Topic, meaning of handicap. A player is responsible for when declared to opponent. 2019. If a player tells the opponent the wrong course handicap before or during the match and does not correct the mistake before the opponent makes his or her next stroke, if the declared handicap is too high, the player is disqualified. 2023, if a player gives the opponent incorrect information in relation to their handicap, and this results in the player giving too few or getting too many strokes, the player is disqualified under Rule 3.2C1. Rule has additional notes. Rule has been revised to be more accurately reflect handicap-related conversations during a match. I'm not sure that grammar's quite right. Rule has been revised to be more accurately reflect. Anyway, good one. So if you don't get a benefit from it, they're basically saying you only get disqualified if you get a benefit for it.
No. So I read that as if a player gives the opponent incorrect information, and this results in the player giving too few or getting too many, the player is disqualified. It's like if there is a difference, whether you're advantaged by it or disadvantaged, it sort of doesn't matter. Previously, I believe that if you were actually giving, if you were disadvantaged by the incorrect handicap, you had to play with that lower handicap.
I think you'd still do. It says in the player giving too few or getting too many. It's not.
So it's either.
But only.
Oh, I see. Giving or getting. That's the difference.
It's depending on you're
of course.
You're a 10 handicap, I'm a 5, or you're a 10 handicap and I'm a 15.
Yep.
If
Giving
you,
too few or getting too many. Got it.
if you stuff yourself up and say you're a 9,
Yes.
you would be giving, or you'd be giving too many, and that wouldn't you wouldn't be disqualified for giving too many.
Yes. Okay, so that's okay. Got it. Thank
Okay.
you for clarifying that.
No, you're
Very
right.
good.
But happy for anyone else to disagree with us. Go for it, Stu.
3.3b1, the player has more than one marker during the round. In 2019, each marker must certify the holes where they were the marker. In 2023, no requirement for multiple markers to certify the hole scores on the scorecard if the one marker sees the player play all of the holes.
I love that. 3.3b4, requirements around showing handicap on scorecard. Player 2019, player responsible for ensuring their handicap is on their return scorecard as well as its accuracy. In 2023, very important this one. Listen up if you're on a committee. Player not responsible for showing handicap on their return scorecard. It's the committee's responsibility for calculating the player's handicap strokes for the competition and using that handicap to calculate the player's net score. However, additional notes, a local rule can be used to put responsibility back on the player. And it will be interesting to see how many, the tour doesn't need to worry about handicap, but it will be interesting to see how many committees adopt that local rule. It is an option for them, and it will be interesting to see.
Look, on that rule, I always wondered why it was the player's responsibility. I mean, the committee generates a scorecard. Here you go, you're about to enter this competition. Here's your scorecard. The player doesn't do the scorecard, the committee does. I always found it odd in handicap competition that the player has to go, hang on, let me just get my calculator out and make sure that handicap is correct. Otherwise, I could be disqualified. I always felt that should have been the committee's responsibility, and now we know it is.
See, I had the other way around. I was like, yep. I really liked it that the player had that responsibility. I've got no issue with that. But what I probably did, and I don't have a solution for this, so this is a good change. But my only issue was if you just put a wrong stroke somewhere, or you just forget because you had such a good round or whatever, and then suddenly you're gone, poof, you're disqualified. I just thought the penalty was far too harsh. But I can understand that if a committee has to run around and find all these players' handicaps, it's a different solution, a different situation. I think that they've been able to bring this one in, they've changed it up because of this whole computerized handicap systems. Most people's handicaps, and with the worldwide handicap system, most people's handicaps are on the computer now and pretty easy to find, pretty easy to print off.
And very few errors.
And computers still make errors, mate.
Oh, no, we've seen them. Yeah, we've seen errors, but very few.
But yeah, no, that's right. And it's just the ease of modern technology. Anyway, let's carry on.
Will do. And just quickly, I wonder how many committees will adopt that model local rule L2.
I'm interested.
4.1A2. So now we're into equipment, Rule 4. The topic is conforming club damaged during a round or while play is stopped under Rule 5.7A. In 2019, a player normally must not replace a club damaged during a round or while play is stopped, except in limited cases. In 2023, except in cases of abuse, the player may repair or replace any damaged club with another club. The additional notes say that Model Local Rule G9 may be used to limit when a damaged club may be replaced.
Yeah, so this is basically 2018, except you can still, the change from 2018 is that you can continue to use or try and repair. You can continue to use the club that you abused. 2018, if you abused a club, you couldn't use it at all afterwards. Whereas now you can still use it, still conforming for the rest of the round. It's just that they've said if you didn't mean to abuse it, if you didn't abuse it, it's just become damaged, you can repair and replace.
Mm-hmm.
4.1A3, player starts round with non-permissible external attachment on club, such as a sticker on the club face. 2019, player not allowed to use the club to make a stroke, even if internal attachment is removed before use. Penalty, player disqualified if club used to make a stroke. 2023, player allowed to remove the external attachment before club is used to make a stroke without penalty. Penalty, no penalty if external attachment is removed before club used to make a stroke. Player disqualified if club used to make a stroke with external attachment still attached. Just a slight change there. So if you start the round, what they're saying is if you start the round and the external attachment is still on the club face, 2019, you couldn't use it at all. Doesn't matter if you remove the external attachment. 2023, just don't make a stroke with the external attachment on. Make sure it's been removed and you'll be fine.
Good change.
Oh, well, yeah. I'd like them to go further and just say, those little dots for the launch monitor stuff, don't worry about them, leave them on. Unless they really do make a change, make an advantage. I don't see. Someone tell me what advantage they make.
Yep. 4.1B4, the topic is building a club from parts being carried. 2019, a player must not build a club from parts being carried by or for them, but may build a club from parts being carried for someone else. In 2023, the player must not build a club from parts being carried by anyone on the course, regardless of who they are being carried for. I must say I've never seen this take place.
It popped up on the PGA Tour 2 years ago, I think. So I think it was maybe Harold Varner, the third. Anyway, clarification 4.3A/1, limitations on using green reading material. 2019, the limitations apply to strokes made on the putting green and strokes made from off the green with a putter when the player is attempting to get the ball on the green. 2023, the limitations apply only to strokes made on the putting green. So you can use green reading material for a chip shot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that complicate things?
5 centimetres off the green.
Not sure. Yeah, weird. Anyway.
We're into Rule 5 now, 5.2 and clarification 5.2/1. The topic is practice on course, all holes not being used for the competition allowed. 2019, it was unclear if a player playing on one course at a venue would be considered to be practicing in breach of Rule 5.2b when they are due to play on another course at the same venue, i.e. within the same boundary later in the day. In 2023, there is no penalty for a player practicing on holes not being used for any rounds of the competition to be played on that day.
Fair enough. 6.3b, player makes a stroke at an incorrectly substituted ball. 2019, it was a penalty, a general penalty. 2023, it will be a penalty, but it's a one-stroke penalty. Makes so much sense, this one. Basically, incorrectly substituted ball, say you on the putting green, and you mark your ball, lift it up, replace it with another ball. 2019, that's a two-shot penalty. 2023, that'll just be the one-shot penalty. It's effectively the same or similar to an unplayable ball, which you can take anywhere except in a penalty area. So good change, I think, on this one.
Yeah, it's probably too harsh a penalty, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The old general penalty for that. It's not as if you're playing it from somewhere else.
No, that's right. You're playing from the same place. It's just
exactly the same spot.
If you do play it from a different place, it's going to be the general penalty still, because it's going to be the higher penalty of the wrong place penalty.
Right. Okay, next, Rule 6.4b1. The topic is player plays out of turn in stroke play to give another player an advantage. In 2019, if two or more players agree to play out of turn to give one of them an advantage, each of them gets a general penalty. In 2023, if two or more players agree to play out of turn to give one of them an advantage, and one of them plays out of turn with the agreement in place, each of them gets the general penalty. The additional notes are disqualification still applies under Rule 1.3 if players are aware this agreement is not allowed.
A little bit to unpack there. What they're saying is you can remove that agreement and you won't get the general penalty, but only if you were never aware that this was not an allowable agreement in the first place. So you and I agree to play out a turn for advantage. Done. We're disqualified. That's it. Because we both know that it's not allowed, right? But if we didn't know that it was against the rules and we had an agreement, then we can actually say, okay, let's play normally in turn for no advantage because, we just got to get on with the game. Then we've just removed that agreement and we won't get the penalty anymore. 8.1D2, a referee worsens a player's conditions affecting the stroke. 2019, unclear whether a player is allowed to restore worsened conditions when those conditions have been worsened by a referee during a ruling. 2023, conditions affecting the stroke that have been worsened by a referee may be restored as allowed by Rule 8.1D1. Interesting. The old walking in the bunker. And
I was just thinking that.
Walking around a ball and in a bunker and whether they're going to get a drop and stuff like that. But remember, if it's worsened by the referee, you can restore it. But if it's worsened by yourself and there's a distinction, you're not going to be able to restore your worsened condition or the conditions worsened by you.
I was just thinking about that, about not going in a bunker or trying to be very careful when you are approaching the ball.
Yep.
And you're trying to help a player. 9.3, so now we're talking about ball at rest, lifted or moved. Ball at rest, moved by natural forces, 9.3. If a ball at rest is moved by natural forces, except after being replaced on the putting green, the ball is to be played from where it comes to rest. That is the 2019 rule. However, in 2023, if a ball at rest is moved by natural forces after being dropped, placed or replaced, and comes to rest in a different area of the course or out of bounds, the ball must be replaced and played from its original spot. A ball on the putting green must still be replaced if moved after being replaced. I have called this the Ricky Fowler rule.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And I think you know why.
Yeah, I've got a video on my YouTube with Ricky Fowler taking this. And it's not just Ricky. There was Thorborn Olsen. Thorborn... I think that's the last name, the one that got suspended and now he's back playing and playing really well. Same thing happened to him as well, where taking relief from penalty relief, ball didn't stay after drop one, ball didn't stay after redrop, placed the ball, went up to have a look at the green, came back, ball's rolled into the water again. So because it's changed from general area to penalty area, he would just get to replace it. If it had gone from general area to another part of the general area, it's play as it lies. Okay?
Yeah. Another example is, this is a really good change. I thought, ball comes up short of the green, comes embedded in the fringe, and you take relief from the embedded ball in the general area, and then the wind picks up and it blows your ball into a bunker. Previously, you'd be playing it from the bunker. Now you just put it back to where you had, where it had come to rest after you dropped, taking relief from the embedded ball. Again, I think it's just a really good change and a pretty significant change.
Yeah, good. If it blew it back down the fairway, then bad luck. Rule 10.2b 1 and 2. Getting help with line of play. 2019. Other than on putting green, player is allowed to set object down to show the line of play, so long as object is removed before making the stroke. 2023. Regardless of an area of the course, a player is not allowed to set an object down to show the line of play. The old putter, the old standing putter, the putter that stands by itself. That's the one that's you're allowed to keep using it, but you're not allowed to leave it by itself. You're not allowed to let go of the putter itself. So if you've got one of those putters and you've been using that technique, well, you'll have to stop from 1 January 2023.
10.2b3, setting object down to help with taking stance. In 2019, player must not take a stance for the stroke with an object set down. In 2023, regardless of area of the course, a player is not allowed to set an object down to show the line of play or to help with taking stance.
Yeah, similar, very similar. 10.2b4, caddy standing behind player once they start to take their stance. 2019, there were 3 clarifications released in 2019 to explain and limit the operation of the rule. In 2023, the rule has been rewritten to incorporate the relevant 2019 clarifications and provide 2 outcomes depending on whether the caddy is standing behind the player to 1, help with aiming, or 2, help with something other than aiming. The area in which the caddy must not stand behind the player to help them has been given a term, the restricted area. The rule now allows for someone other than the player's caddy or partner to stand in the restricted area to track the flight of the ball. Great, because if you're heading back into the sun, you really need all the help you can get to keep an eye on that ball.
Yep. Good one. Clarification 10.2b/1, using a self-standing putter for alignment help. In 2019, the player allowed to set a self-standing putter down in a stand position right behind or right next to the ball and either leave it there or realign it to show the line of play or to help take the stance. In 2023, a player or their caddy is not allowed to use a self-standing putter down to get help in any way that would breach Rule 10.2b.
Yeah, I obviously talked about that in the rule above, so you can tell I've just been caught out. You can tell that I haven't read this thing, and this is the first time I'm reading it. But yeah, it's the self-standing putter. You can still use a self-standing putter, you just can't let it self-stand. 11.1b2, when ball played from putting green hits something on putting green. 2019, the player's stroke does not count if the ball in motion hit any person, animal, or movable obstruction on the putting green. However, there was a model local rule D7 that was introduced to limit the instances when the stroke does not count. In 2023, if they've basically tried to adopt model local rule D7 into the rule, so if the player does not replay the stroke when required to do so under this rule, they get the general penalty and the stroke counts, but the player has not played from a wrong place. So if a ball played from the putting green hits the player, the club the player used to make the stroke, or a worm, an insect, or a similar animal, the stroke counts and the ball was played as it lies. This change brings the concept from model local rule D7 into the rules.
Yep, good one. As you said, all professional tours had adopted D7 anyway, hadn't they?
Yeah,
so now they're just incorporating them into the rules.
Yep.
That is now the rule. 11.2c2. The topic is player fails to replay the stroke made from the putting green when required to do so. In 2019, if the player fails to replay their stroke after their stroke did not count, they have played from a wrong place. In 2023, if the player fails to replay the stroke when required to do so, they get the general penalty and the stroke counts, but the player has not played from a wrong place, which is pretty much what you had just said above as well.
Yeah, and so you don't have to determine whether it's a breach, just a breach or a serious breach. It's not a wrong place penalty. You just get the 2-shot penalty and you carry on. 14.1c, cleaning ball. Unclear if cleaning a ball that is not lifted results in a penalty and under what rule is the 2019 statement. So 2023, cleaning a ball that is not lifted results in a 1-stroke penalty. Cleaning a ball that is not lifted results in a 1-stroke penalty. So
I've never seen too many people try to bend down and get rid of a bit of mud off the side of their ball.
I'm really just trying to think as quickly as possible that concept. So your ball's on the putting green. You haven't, let's say you haven't marked it, so you haven't picked it up. You've just tried to flick a piece of dirt off your
Bit of mud sticking to the side, but
clean the ball is not lifted results in one strip. So even though on the, I need to read more into that one, but even though it says that you can mark and lift your ball on the putting green, if you don't lift it, it's a one-stroke penalty. So, yeah, okay.
14.2D, recreating altered lie in sand. In 2019, a player has played from a wrong place if they fail to recreate their original lie. In 2023, if player plays from the right place but fails to recreate their original lie, they get the general penalty.
Okay. Well, fair enough. That makes sense.
So as you're saying with the previous one as well, it's still the same penalty. It's still the general penalty. As you say, the committee doesn't need to work out whether it's a serious breach from playing from a wrong place or not.
Yeah.
It's the same penalty. You're still getting general penalty.
Yeah, but they just, it's not serious enough. So
we need to correct it.
Yeah, exactly right. 14.3B, back on the line relief. Big change, this one, 2019. While remaining within the limits of the specific rule, the player may drop the ball 1 club length away from the line, and if the ball rolls forward of that reference point, the ball must be dropped a second time. Model local rule E12 allowed the ball to be played from forward of the reference point. That was a terrible model local rule. 2023, while remaining within the limits of the specific rule, the player must drop the ball on the line and the ball must come to rest within 1 club length in any direction of where it first touched the line. This is a lot more similar to 2018, where you had to drop it on the line, anywhere on the line, that was up to you. That line from where the ball was or where the point of entry was back as far as possible in line with the flag, as long as it's in bounds. So you could drop it anywhere on the line and it could roll up to 2 club lengths. 2019, they changed it so you could drop it anywhere within that half circle, no closer to the hole of the line. That half circle was 1 club length to the left and 1 club length to the right, so effectively a 2 club length diameter. And then it had to stay in that relief area. Actually, it's probably more like an oval because it was like 2 club lengths there, but it was 1 club length back, so it was more like a half oval. But now the change, great change. I think this is good. You're dropping on the line and it can roll up to 1 club length in a circle. Okay, so you've got a whole circle there that your ball can roll up to 1 club length. Great change.
I agree, and the way the rule is written is when the ball touches the ground, it creates the relief area.
Yep.
So wherever it first strikes the ground, is effectively the reference point, and it creates that circle where the ball can then come to rest in that area. So yeah, great change. 14.7, so playing from a wrong place. The topic is reporting to the committee after trying to fix a serious breach of playing from a wrong place. In 2019, if a player tries to play from a right place to fix their mistake, they must report to the committee before returning their scorecard. If not, they are disqualified. In 2023, a player must report to the committee only when they have played 2 balls to fix their mistake.
Interesting. Okay. I guess you can still play from a wrong place. You just don't have to talk to the committee about it unless you've played the 2 balls.
Well, the 2 balls is when you don't know if it's a serious breach or not, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, the 2 balls is for under 20 point, 1C.
Well, so if you're not sure if it's a serious breach, you can play whether you do need to correct it or not.
Yeah.
There is that provision under 14.7.
Yeah. So now if you
go ahead and actually correct your serious breach, you actually don't have to tell the committee. You only have to do it if you're actually playing 2 balls because you're not sure.
If a player tries to play from a right place, So I need to read more into this one. The player tries to play from the right place to fix it. They must report for it. So say in 2023.
Yeah. So I've got it here under
if you
14.7.
If you try to play from a right place, but you still play from the wrong place, you don't have to report to the committee.
What to do if uncertain whether the breach is serious? The player should play at the hole with both the ball played from a wrong place and a second ball played from a right place. The player who plays two balls must report it to the committee. If the player is uncertain whether playing from the wrong place was a serious breach and decides to play a second ball in trying to correct it, the player must report the facts to the committee before returning the scorecard.
Okay. 16.1C2, back on the line relief. 2019, while remaining within the limits of the specific rule, the player may drop the ball one club length away from the line, and if the ball rolls forward to the reference point, the ball must be dropped a second time. Model local rule E12 allowed the ball to be played from forward of the reference point. 2023, while remaining within the limits of the specific rule, the player must drop the ball on the line and the ball must come to rest within one club length in any direction of where it first touched the line. That was an exact copy of what you said in 14.3b. Let's keep going.
And I assume we're going to see it again under 17.1 and 19.2 and 18. Anyway,
yeah, I think we just, I can see it already under 17.1d.
Right.
So I think we just say refer back to, we've already covered this.
14.3. 16.3b and clarification 16.3b/1 is embedded ball relief. In 2019, there is no requirement for the reference point to be in the general area. In some situations, relief is not available if no part of the relief area is in the general area. In 2023, the reference point must be in the general area. If the spot right behind the ball is not in the general area, the player must find the nearest spot, no closer to the hole, in the general area and use that as the reference point. See clarification 16.3b/1. Is this the bunker example?
Yeah, my couple of bunker examples that I filmed come to mind. If I wasn't able to find... there is one there where the ball is embedded in the lip, but it sticks out into the bunker. So directly behind it was fresh air or bunker.
Or sand. Yeah.
So I would actually have to move. They're saying you still get relief. You just have to find. So I have to move and I can think my nearest point was actually to the left. Oh, that's right. I didn't give any relief in that situation.
Right. Because there was no reference point in the general area.
No, I think I didn't give any relief in that situation because there was no general area in the relief area, actually.
Yeah. So there was no relief available.
Yeah, so it wasn't about the reference point. So in this situation, I go, okay, there's no reference point in the general area. I'd go over to the left and then I'd find a reference point and I'd have a relief area. So I'll have to slightly change. Oh, actually, you have to remove that video and good chance to film a new one, Stuart.
So effectively in 2019, there was possibility that you weren't able to get free relief. In 2023, they're saying, no, you can always get free relief. You just need to find a spot to take relief.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
17.1D2, refer to 14.3D. 14.3B. We have already covered it. That's the back on the line relief.
Okay, 18.2A1 and clarification 18.2A1/3. The topic is meaning of reasonable time when identifying a ball found within the search time. In 2019, a player is allowed a reasonable time to identify a ball after the search time expires, so long as it was found within the search time. What is considered reasonable is up to each committee. In 2023, a new clarification has been added to clarify that 1 minute is the most time a player should be given by the committee to identify a found ball when it is found towards the end of the search time.
What about if it's found at the start of the search time? I guess you've still got your 2.5 minutes or whatever to find the ball or identify the ball.
Okay. Yeah, if it's found at 2:50, and you're 100 metres away, like that situation I had at Warragul, you've basically got another minute to get down there and identify it.
So you've got your 10 seconds up to 3 minutes, then another minute. That's how I would say it. You've got
should be given by the committee to identify a found ball when it is found towards the end of the search time.
I need to clarify that. If it's found at 2:30, you get your 30. You get your extra 30 seconds plus another.
You get
minute.
90 seconds or not.
Let's work into that one. But exactly the situation that you had at Warragul, where the player, it was 100, 150.
He was a long way away. Yeah.
So then you got, hey mate, you've got 1 minute, and then you'll see,
and I'm timing.
Then you still start running. 20.2D, 2 wrong handicap on scorecard results in wrong player winning the competition. 2019, player is responsible for the correct handicap on the scorecard. If the handicap was too high, the player would be disqualified from the handicap competition. If the handicap was too low, that handicap is used to calculate the player's net score. 2023, and we've talked about this, as per rule 3.3b4, the committee is responsible for calculating the player's handicap strokes for the competition and using it to calculate the player's net score. If the committee miscalculates either, this is an administrative mistake and there is no time limit for correcting the player's net score and the result of the competition. So if someone wins and when they really should have come second place, yay, I've won. Actually, you're second. Thanks very much.
Okay, no more comments. Rule 21.1C, the topic is penalties in Stableford. In 2019, if a player breaches any of the 3 exceptions, they get points deducted from their total points. In 2023, all penalties are applied as they are in regular stroke play, except for the 5 times a player gets 0 points on the hole instead of being disqualified. That means the penalty may not impact on the player's score. For example, if a player would have scored 0 on the hole before they got the penalty.
I need to look into this because I stuffed one up in one of our episodes about 10 episodes ago.
Oh, yes.
Where I said they would get 0 points on the first 2 holes.
Right.
But that was incorrect. It was a minus from the total score. Now they're saying
36 points. It comes down to 32.
Yeah, except for the 5 times a player gets 0 points on the hole instead of being disqualified. That means the player may not impact. Yeah, so I need to look further into those.
So I've just quickly got it here. All penalties that apply in stroke play apply in Stableford, except that a player who breaches any of these 5 rules is not disqualified, but gets 0 points for the hole when the breach happened. Failure to hole out, failure to correct mistake of playing from outside the teeing area, failure to correct a mistake of playing a wrong ball, failure to correct mistake of playing from a wrong place when there is a serious breach, or failure to correct mistake of making a stroke in the wrong order. If the player breaches any other rule with a penalty of disqualification, the player is disqualified.
Oh, I see. I would have thought that they were all just 0 points on that hole anyway.
Anyway, because as you would say, you're disqualified from that hole.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe I've been touting the wrong thing.
No, I think that's correct. I think practically what you've said is correct.
Yeah, but I think rules-wise, I think it might have been wrong. And then the 21, actually, can you look, I might take over the next couple, can you find that situation where, is there any situation where it takes the points off the total points rather than just the first 2 holes?
I'll have
a look and I'll take over. Now, 21.3C, penalties in par/bogey. I don't know what bogey is, but I'm assuming it's similar to par.
Yeah.
It's probably still, yeah. So it's exactly the same text as what Stuart has just read about the Stableford. 2019, if a player breaches any of the 3 exceptions, they get holes deducted from the total holes won. 2023, All penalties are applied as they are in regular stroke play, except for the 5 times a player loses the hole instead of being disqualified. That means the penalty may not impact on the player's score. For example, if the player would have lost the hole before they got the penalty. 22.1, requirements around showing handicap on scorecard. 2019, it's the player's responsibility for ensuring their individual handicaps are on their return scorecard. In 2023, players not responsible for showing handicaps on their return scorecard. It's the committee's responsibility for calculating the player's handicap strokes for the competition and using that handicap to calculate the player's net score. And there is an additional note of that local rule, which we talked about before, which is L2, can be used to put the responsibility back on the players. Just interrupting you when you find out, Stuart.
Well, I just went to the example of clubs, having too many clubs, and I'm just going for there as an example. But anyway,
that might have been what it was. That's a great
I'm still
example.
looking.
Okay, no worries. 22.6, standing behind partner. 2019, a player is in breach of rule 10.2b4 if their partner stands behind them once they start to take their stance of the stroke, unless the player takes a stance again. In foursomes, the penalty will therefore apply to the side. 2023, new rule 22.6 prohibits a partner from standing behind the player to gain information for the side's next stroke, and if the partner does so, the side gets the general penalty. This is in addition to the limitations in rule 10.2b4 on the player. 23.2b1, requirements around showing handicap on scorecard. We've already talked about this. Basically, it's not the responsibility of the players, but it's the responsibility of the committee. However, the committee can adopt local rule 2 to put the responsibility back on the players. 23.8, standing behind partner. 2019, if a player in 4-ball breaches rule 10.2b4 due to the positioning of their partner behind them, the player gets the general penalty under rule 10.2b4. The partner gets no penalty unless the breach helped them. 2023, new rule 23.8 prohibits a partner from standing behind the player to gain information for their own next stroke, and if the partner does so, the partner gets the general penalty. This is in addition to the limitations in rule 10.2b4 on the player. 24.4b, restrictions on giving help for advice givers. 2019, the player does not automatically get a penalty under 10.2b4 for the advice giver standing behind them once they start to take the stance for the stroke. 2023, the player's advice giver is held to the same standards for applying 10.2b4 that their caddy, partner, and partner's caddy are. Stuart's still having a look to see.
Well, okay, I'll just, if I can just interject. So I'm just going through both books. So I've got the 2019 official guide and I've got the 2023 official guide. And the section under 2019, the first bit about penalties in Stableford, the first exception is about having too many clubs. 4 points, first 2 holes, 4 points comes off your total score. All those sections, all those exceptions about too many clubs, starting time, unreasonable delay, is actually gone out of the 2023 book. It goes straight into those 5 things that I mentioned: failure to hole out, failure to correct mistake, blah, blah, blah. It actually doesn't mention that at all under penalties in Stableford.
So having extra clubs is, it's not a disqualification. Oh, we'll have to look into this. That's interesting. So obviously it's not a disqualification. You just get the penalty and then you have to take one out of play. But what happens in Stableford? Where are the points deducted?
Yeah, where are they taken?
Okay.
It just doesn't exist in the 2023 book.
We will look into that and get back to the community as quick as possible. Now, we've got 3, so we've got a Rule 25 now. So there's been an inclusion of the rules for people living with a disability into the actual rule book. Previously, it was just held at the back of the book. Now it's in there. So Rule 25, The topic is general modifications for players with disabilities. 2019, the modifications are treated as local rules and are not in effect unless put into effect by a committee who may choose which of the modifications to put into effect. However, in 2023, the modifications have the same status as any other rule and are in effect for all competitions.
Right. Would you like me to do the next one?
Yeah, go for it, Stuart.
25.2c. Rule 10.2b3 for visually impaired players is the topic. In 2019, a visually impaired player must not take a stance for the stroke in relation to an object they set on the ground. In 2023, a visually impaired player may set an object on the ground to help with taking a stance, but the object must be removed before making the stroke.
25.4k. Status of assistive mobility device in relation to Rule 11.1b. 2019, unless clarified by a committee, the player's stroke does not count if their ball played from the putting green accidentally hits their assistive mobility device. 2023, if a ball played from the putting green accidentally hits their assistive mobility device, the ball must be played as it lies.
Almost the equivalent of hitting them or hitting the club they use to make the stroke.
Yeah, that's a very similar change to an able-bodied person. For that Rule 11. Now we're getting into model local rules. This will be really interesting. Let's tug into it.
And we are nearly done. Model local rule E11. The topic is local rule ball deflected by a power line. In 2019, a player's stroke does not count if the ball is deflected by a power line. If the player does not replay the stroke, they have played from a wrong place, but the stroke does not count. In 2023, a player must replay their stroke if it is deflected by a power line. If they do not, the stroke counts and they get the general penalty but have not played from a wrong place.
That is provided the local rule is in place in the first place. And if it is, it's not a wrong place penalty if you don't correct the... It's not your error, but correct the situation. Model local rule E12, local rule permitting the use of mats on parts of the general area cut to fairway height or less. 2019, this local rule was available on request. 2023, this local rule is now included in the model local rules in the official guide for completeness.
That's generous of them.
They actually use this model local rule at St Andrews before the Open, or even just during the winter time to cut down on the amount of divots on the golf course. And they also use it at places like Cooper Pedy, where there is no grass, and it's just rocks and stones. So it's actually saving the golfer themselves.
I assume the next one should be MLR, not MLF. Should be model local rule F5.
No, because they've got MLF.
The next one, but then it goes back to L. Then it goes to model local rule again. MLR.
What does it say in the book? You got the book right in front of you.
Oh yeah, I do. I'll get to it in a sec.
Okay.
F5, restricting the use of model local rule F5 to situations where both the ball and the obstruction are in part of the general area cut to fairway height or less. In 2019, this option is within the principles of the model local rule and is used by several tours and national associations. In 2023, this local rule is now included in the model local rules in the official guide for completeness.
Yeah, so this is a common one where, the courses that we play on down here in the Sandbelt, it's not going to be necessarily a big issue because it's usually tightly cut surface, so greens are surrounded mostly by fairway or bunker, which wouldn't matter. Whereas other parts of the world where they grow their rough, 2, 3, 5 inches right beside the green, saying if you miss the green, you're penalised by this thick rough. But if you have a sprinkler in your way, you have to be in the fairway or grass cut to fairway height or less to be able to get that free relief, because it's only when you're going to be putting. We're not going to give you free relief out of that thick rough. I will go into MLF F22 and you can search out why it's called.
Oh no, it's definitely wrong. It should be MLR.
So MLR F22. Local rule, ball hits temporary elevated line or cable, 2019. A player's stroke does not count if it is known or virtually certain that it hits a temporary elevated line or cable. If the player doesn't replay the stroke, they have played from a wrong place, but the stroke does not count. 2023, a player must replay a stroke if it is known or virtually certain that it hits a temporary elevated line or cable. If they do not, the stroke counts and they get the general penalty, but have not played from the wrong place. Very similar to deflected by power line.
And I assume that's pretty much for major events where you have cables running everywhere.
Yep.
Model Local Rule F23, temporary immovable obstructions, talking about events. 2019, a committee can allow players to take relief from interference by TIOs on the either side of the TIO rather than limiting relief to the nearest side. But when taking relief on the other side for physical interference using the procedures in Rule 16.1, the committee must determine what is the other side, or the committee can limit relief so that relief on the other side is not available when using the procedures in Rule 16.1. In 2023, a committee can allow players to take relief from interference by the TIOs on either side of the TIO. But this additional option does not apply when a player takes relief using the procedures in Rule 16.1.
Okay. F23, very much a tour local rule. Very rare that it would be at your local club.
Yep.
MLR F24, relief from immovable obstructions in penalty areas. When a player's ball is in a penalty area, they are not allowed to take relief from immovable obstructions under 2019. 2023, a committee can allow players relief from immovable obstructions when their ball is in a penalty area. Wow. They should specify which obstructions relief is allowed from rather than allowing relief from all obstructions. This is not a rule. This is not the rule, okay? So 16.1 says you do not get free relief from interference by an immovable obstruction when your ball is in a penalty area. However, a committee could adopt F24, which would allow a committee to determine or specify specific immovable obstructions that a player could get relief from. It's not the rule.
It would be a very unique situation.
Yeah, correct.
Something really unique. Model Local Rule F25, the player has interference from an abnormal course condition, such as a narrow fence or wall, where the nearest point of complete relief may be on the other side of the abnormal course condition. In 2019, there was no model local rule detailed, though such a local rule is allowed. In 2023, local rule available to state that the nearest point of complete relief must be determined without crossing over, through, or under the abnormal course condition.
I like that one. I reckon the tours might add that to their hard card. Just a guess. And I have no inside info, but just a guess. But I do like that one. MLR F26. Wow, they're getting into a lot more MLRs in Section F this time. Gates in boundary fences and walls. Oh, brilliant. They've addressed this one. 2019, gates and boundary fences and walls are not part of the boundary object and are obstructions unless the committee defines them to be integral. But even when integral, if the gate is movable, it is treated as a movable obstruction. 2023, a committee can treat closed gates as part of the boundary object, not allowing them to be moved when in such position. If a gate is open, it is treated as a movable obstruction and may be moved. I think everyone will adopt this one. This is the Annika Sorenstam and Dan the ref, which happened 3 years ago.
Okay. Model local rule G, and that is the last one. F26 is the last one, just looking at the book here. G4, the one ball rule, which won't affect too many club golfers. In 2019, the penalty was the general penalty. In 2023, similar to the making a stroke at an incorrectly substituted ball, the penalty is a one-stroke penalty.
Yep, fair call there one. MLR G9, restricting when a broken or significantly damaged club may be replaced. Rule 4.1A2, which you've covered, states that a player normally must not replace a club damaged during a round or while players stop, except in limited cases. MLR G9 allows a player to replace a club that has been broken or significantly damaged by the player or caddie, except in cases of abuse. The 2023 version, Rule 4.1A2, states that except in cases of abuse, the player may repair the club or replace it with another club. MLR G9 limits replacement to cases where the club is broken or significantly damaged, which does not include a club that is cracked. Additional notes, the outcome of introducing MLR G9 under 2023 rules is the same as when it was introduced under 2019 rules. I think I needed a bit more time to get my head around that one.
Model Local Rule G12, prohibiting use of written, printed, electronic or digital materials. In 2019, unless the Model Local Rule G11 is in effect, players may use any written, printed, electronic or digital materials so long as it meets the size, scale and other requirements of Interpretation 4.3A/1 when the limitations apply. In 2023, a committee can prohibit players from using any written, printed, electronic or digital materials to help them read their line of play on the putting green.
Oh, please, please, everyone adopt this. Absolutely, please. Oh, I hate those green reading material. MLRI2, local rule prohibiting practice on or near previous putting green. 2019, a committee cannot prohibit practice on a practice putting green. 2023, a committee may prohibit practice on practice putting green. So in the case where you're going between holes 18 and 1 because you started on the 10th and there's a practice putting green and there's a bit of time where there's a bit of a hold up, you can practice on that practice putting green. But I2 can be adopted by a committee prohibiting you from using that practice putting green. You would still be able to practice putt on the teeing area before you start playing.
Model Local Rule K2, bad times in multiple round stroke play competitions. In 2019, no permission detailed in the Model Local Rule to carry bad times throughout the competition, though this would be allowed. In 2023, bad times may carry throughout the stroke play competition.
Yeah, I think that we were already doing this. I think Asian Tour, if you had a bad time in round 1, you could still be penalised for a second bad time in round 2, or to round 3. So I think we'd already been doing this, and now the rule is following what the tours were possibly already doing. Hopefully I've got that one right. But anyway, regardless of whether I have or not, bad times may carry throughout the stroke play round. MLR L1, modification of penalty under Rule 3.3B2 when scorecard missing player or marker certification. 2019, if a player returns their scorecard without their certification or their marker certification, they are disqualified. 2023, a committee may modify the disqualification penalty to 2 penalty strokes in the event it is returned without the player or marker certification. I think everyone will adopt this one. I think everyone will adopt this, so you can modify that disqualification penalty to 2 penalty strokes when someone has forgot to sign it. As I said before, I think it's on the responsibility of the player. I just find the disqualification penalty just far too harsh. That's all. I love this.
Model Local Rule L2, making player responsible for handicap on the scorecard. We've already discussed this. The 2019 was C Rule 3.3B4 above, which we spoke about. In 2023, Rule 3.3B4 states that there is no requirement for a player's handicap to be shown on the scorecard. However, a committee can put this responsibility back on the player.
See, again, and I haven't read the penalty statement for this. I would want it to be put back on the player, but not a disqualification penalty. A 2-shotter or something. I don't know if we can do that. I need to read into it, but I think disqualification is too harsh. But I do like the player having the responsibility rather than the committee. MLR M3, our last one. Committee determines that there is clear evidence that a player's ability to putt is significantly and negatively impacted by ataxia or athetosis, and the player holds a WR4GD pass or EDGA access pass. 2019, it's an unpublished position that in the limited circumstances detailed the player is exempt from penalty under Rule 10.1b, anchoring the club. 2023, it's now published in the official guide. So what they're saying, this is for your modified rules for players with living with a disability. They didn't allow, so the rules didn't allow anchoring, but then they were, for those, that set of people that were living with a disability, it can be very tough to hold the club or, play the game of golf without anchoring. So they said, yep, that's fine, you can do that. Now they've actually published that and said, yes, if you hold this or you're negatively impacted by these illnesses or diseases or disabilities, then you will be able to anchor the club.
I must admit, 60 seconds ago, I didn't know what ataxia is.
Yeah.
Now, I just read it out for those who don't know. It describes poor muscle control that causes clumsy voluntary movements. So it's a degenerative disease of the nervous system.
Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty shocking if we didn't allow people to anchor the club when they probably, it helps with their enjoyment of the game.
If it gets them out there playing golf, yeah.
For able-bodied golfers, there is no need. Under the rules currently that allow you to anchor the club. Fantastic, Stuart. We got through all that in just over an hour. So hope we ran through it. So hopefully the listeners can get a better understanding of what the changes are. And if they need to, they can always pause, rewind, go through it again. There are a few things that I need to read up again about and just make sure I'm on top of. Even though or both of us referee a few tour events, I do love my Stableford, so I do really want to be on top of the applicable penalties in Stableford, whether it's a two-shot or a disqualification, there's points lost, what hole they lost, or is it total score, etc., etc. So good start for us to get into learning the game or learning the new rules for 2023. Now,
I'm going to say one thing, sorry if I may.
Go for it.
So we know that interpretations will now be called clarifications. And I know that in the 2019 book, you liked the fact that after each section, the interpretations for that section were there. So after 13.1, it would go through all the interpretations for 13.1 before it got to 13.2. In the 2023 book, it doesn't do that. So you go through 14.1 to all the way to 7, then it goes through the clarifications for all of Rule 14 at the end of that. So that's a big change in the way the book is produced.
Yeah, I did. I looked at it the other day, and very funny because this is back to the way that the format was for the decisions book in 2018. So it's gone back to 2018's format. I haven't actually. You might be able to look at, because you got the book right in front of you. Does it still? What does it do for clarifications around the definitions?
Oh, where are the definitions?
Because I did again really like the fact that the interpretations were right after each definition.
After GUR, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the clarifications will still be in the same.
It is. You wouldn't believe it. I've just turned to GUR. You wouldn't believe that, page 300 something. So ground under repair, and then sure enough, straight away, it's got ground under repair, clarification 1, clarification 2, clarification 3. Then it goes on to hole.
Yeah,
hold,
so
and then the interpretations for hold.
You can't really separate it, but I was just hoping that they didn't go definitions and then clarifications.
All the clarifications. Yeah, they haven't done that. Yeah, okay, so in the definitions, I wonder if there's any more definitions. There were 74. I wonder if there's more or less.
Actually, well, they haven't put the outcome changes in here, but yeah, that's something that we might be able to find or look into. Right, GRQOTW number 75. And you can let us know whether it's a 2019 or 2023 version if you want.
Don't think it'll make any difference, this particular question.
Perfect.
GRQOTW number 75, it's exactly the same under any rule book. Big P is taking free relief from temporary water on the 17th hole at Wombat Hills. He drops his ball, which lands inside the relief area. But before it comes to rest, and while it's still inside the relief area, his caddie, Andy the average golfer, puts his foot down and stops the ball from rolling into a divot inside the relief area. What's the ruling?
Oh, tough one to finish. Fantastic. I also have to say, I don't think they need any more information there, but he deliberately put his foot on the divot because he saw the ball rolling towards the divot.
Poor Andy. Yeah, he hasn't caddied much before.
Oh, he's an average golfer, and he's
not a very good golfer himself. He just thought
he's an average bloke and an average caddy. So I must shout out to Big P though. These are real people, and Andy's actually a really good guy. But I must shout out to Big P. Thank you very much for the donating to my longest day charity donation, raising money. We're raising money for Cancer Council. I played with Scott and Dean on Monday at Spring Valley. We played 72 holes in 9 hours and 9 minutes. So there was no slow play there. No bad times there. Lots of playing out of order, but nothing for an advantage, especially when I was averaging about 25 points. But it was a fantastic day. The weather was crazy. We got everything. It was 4 seasons in one day, but we still did it. I think we played so fast because we were trying to get out of the weather. So that was extra motivation. But I've raised $300 so far. Really proud of that. I'd love to raise as much as I can, but even any kick in, and Big P did a kick in. So shout out to Big P. Thank you very much. And shout out to everyone that donated. And whether it was to me or just Cancer Council Australia, it doesn't matter. It's all going towards a worthy cause. So fantastic. And for all those people that are playing 72 holes or have already played 72 holes, raising money, raising awareness, thank you very much. And make sure during the hot period that the sun could come out and burn your skin. Please, please, please slip, slop, slap. Put on some sunscreen, put on clothes, or just stay in the shade.
Very good. Well done for playing 72 holes.
Thank you very much. I think I doubled the amount of golf I played this year. So that is episode 75 under the belts. That is season 5 under the belts. We're going to take a break now for Christmas. Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy New Year. We will be back shortly, quicker than you think. We're going to try and do a few more things to the podcast, get a bit more organised, make sure that we're on top of all the rules. And, we look forward to seeing everyone back here soon.